Hi, this is Philip with G6 Technology Services. Today we have a 15-inch HP laptop and the customer wants us to replace the hard drive with a solid-state drive and to upgrade the RAM. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just make sure that our system is off, which I have already verified that. Then we'll need to flip it over and we'll want to take the battery out. And then we'll just set that off to the side. And then I have a copy of this page from the service manual that shows each screw that has to come out. So if you're doing a repair like this, I would highly recommend looking up the service manual to figure out which screws to take out. Sometimes you don't have to take all of them out. So this one will tell us exactly which ones to take out, and then I'll also set the screw on the picture where it goes so I know where it goes back in because they're not all the same size. So to start with, I'll grab our Phillips #1 screwdriver, and they want us to take out the optical drive. So there's a screw right in the middle that holds that in. So we'll go ahead and remove that. Okay, that doesn't really want to come out of there. We'll see if I can get it out. No, I'm going to have to turn it over and dump that screw out. Okay, we've got the screw. So again, I've got our service manual. I'm just going to go ahead and I guess I can put that over here. And we'll just put the screws on the picture where they go. So that way it's easy to tell where they go to put them back in. So we've got this optical drive that's just slid right out of there. So we'll go ahead and put that off to the side as well. And now we'll have to start removing the many screws that need to come out. So I'm just going to pick a starting point and just work around in a circle. So it looks like there's these plastic feet have to come up. So I'll get a spudger and try and get these plastic feet off of here. I'm not sure exactly how they work, so we'll just have to figure that out. It doesn't say. It just says to pry them up. And I'd like to do it in a way that doesn't damage them and that allows us to easily stick them back on afterwards. Okay, so I've got that started. It's got some very strong adhesive, which is a good thing, because then they're not going to fall off. So I hope it's just as good when it goes back on. Okay, got that foot off of there. And we have our screw that's underneath it. This is where a magnetic screwdriver would be handy, because these screws don't really want to come out of there. So I have to try and get them out. Otherwise I'll have to just turn it over and dump it for each one. Might be what I have to do because they're recessed a fair bit in there and they don't stick up far enough to grab them. So we'll go ahead and put that one right there. Okay. Okay, I think we have all of them. It shows that there's a couple more on the side, but I don't see those. So we'll just go ahead and see if we can get this case to separate now. So it's important whenever you're prying to use a plastic pry tool, because if we use a metal one, it can scratch and damage the plastic case. So I'm just going to try and get this bottom cover off. And then I think that manual is not quite the right one. I think these two screws have to come out, so I'm just going to try that. It feels like it's stuck right there. I'm just going to put that one over here. We'll see. Yeah, I think that one did need to come out. That's a lot better now. So there's also another one on this side. Okay, so we have that cover off. And here is the inside of our system. We can see our two memory modules and our hard drive. So what we're going to do, this is a strange configuration. They have one 2 GB module and one 4 GB, so there's a total of 6. So this customer wants 8. So what we're going to do is just remove the 2 GB module and replace it with a 4 GB. So to do that, we just spread these two little tabs apart, and it just springs up, and you just lift it right out. Okay, and as far as the hard drive, there's just a few screws that hold that down, and then we have some connectors over here. So we want to be very careful of these connectors, and I'm just going to go ahead and undo these screws. Okay, so it's another day because it turns out that they sent the wrong kind of RAM. We got a desktop stick instead of the SODIMM laptop stick, so I had to send that back, but we have the right one now. Also, whenever we're going to take the hard drive out, I had mentioned before about this little connector here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, but you can actually disconnect that, and it makes it a lot easier to take it out. Okay, so this connector here, there's a white tab. You just lift that up, and then this just comes right out of here. So that makes it a lot easier to get everything taken out without damaging this. So I would recommend, while the hard drive is still in here, to go ahead and flip that up and take this out first. Then you can just lift the whole thing out. Okay, so now that we have our hard drive out, we're going to go ahead and disconnect, or I'm sorry, to remove these 4 screws that are holding the bracket in place. So you want to remember which orientation it was in, so we put it back the right way with the new solid state drive. So we'll just go ahead and grab our number 1 Phillips here. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and take this new SSD out of the box. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put the brackets on here. That doesn't want to come off. I have scissors. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and put that to the side. And then we'll get our new drive and make sure the connector is lined up the right way. And we'll move the bracket over. A little bit fiddly, gotta get it lined up. Okay, then we got that screw started, that'll hold it in place. Right, we'll go ahead and get the other side of this off of here. Okay, so that's in there. So we'll go ahead and plug in our little connector here. And then we'll make sure that this drive gets lined back up where it belongs. Right, like that. Then we'll go ahead and plug in our connector. And it goes in the same way it came out. It just sits in, and then after it feels like it's in there all the way, it's not going to click or have any kind of feedback. It's just kind of up to your senses to try and tell when it's in there, but you just fold down the little tab and then it locks it in place. So we'll go ahead and put these screws back in to hold the bracket in place. Okay, so now this customer wanted us to upgrade the RAM too. It had kind of an unusual configuration. There was, let's see what this is, 4 gigabytes in this slot and 2 in this one, so there was 6, and they want to go to 8. So we're leaving this 4 gigabyte one, we've taken out this 2 gigabyte, and we've ordered another 4 gigabyte. So I'll put the link to this in the video description in case you want the same kind, but it's just a Patriot memory signature line, DDR4. So let's see how we get this out of here without breaking it. There we go. And then that will just slot right in. we go. Now we've got 8 gigabytes. And then I'll just put this other one in this packaging. And then we'll just, actually, how does that lock into there? Okay, there we go. And we'll just hang on to that in case we might need it someday. So that completes the internal section. So we're going to go ahead now and put our bottom cover back on, and we'll just start reassembling everything. So this should just snap straight down, and all of those little clips should start latching that we had to pop loose before. So it's important to go ahead and take your time and make sure that all of these clips get latched down, because if any of them are not completely seated, then you're going to end up with weird gaps in your case, and you might have a hard time getting some of the screws to go back in. So it looks like we've got everything secured, all the ports lined back up. So now we'll just go ahead and start putting all of our case screws back in, which, if I'm remembering this correctly, they didn't quite line up, but I have them in the right order, so we should be able to get them back where they go. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and put our CD drive back in. That just slides in. And then we have our one screw that holds it in place. Alright, so now we have these little plastic feet, so I'll just go ahead and stick those back on. Okay, to my surprise, they do actually seem to be sticking back on. I thought we were going to have a problem there. But they're adhering nicely. Okay, and then we'll put our battery back in. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so there we are, completely back together. And then we don't need this anymore, so I'll just get rid of that. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we have to connect our old hard drive so we can copy everything from here onto the new SSD. So I'll go ahead and we'll get that started right now. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is use, where is it? There we go. Our SATA to USB 3 adapter. And we'll also need we'll grab this one, Clonezilla. And then I'm going to go ahead and we'll plug in our power adapter too. That's really important when you're cloning a hard drive to make sure you're not running on battery power, because it's really easy for it to go longer than you think, and then it's going to kill the battery and it'll corrupt it and you have to wipe the drive and start over. And we don't want to have to do that. Let's get some of this packaging out of the way. So we'll plug in our power. And then we'll get our Clonezilla CD in there. So I don't know what the command is on HP to get to the boot menu, so we'll see. We'll see what it does, but we want to boot off of that CD. So I might have to go into the BIOS and disable secure boot. I just don't know what button that is. Oh, that's not what we want. Alright, well I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know what button it is to get into the BIOS settings, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I figured it out. It's F10 on this computer. So what we're going to look for is under, well, let's check under boot options. There we go, secure boot. So we just want to turn that off temporarily so we can boot from our Clonezilla CD. So we'll try that and see if it fixes our problem. Okay, so it just wanted us to confirm that we shut off secure boot. And it looks like, yep, perfect, it's working. So we'll go ahead and just hit enter. Okay, so just a quick note before we go on here. So this utility, I'll put a link to it in the description in case you want to use it. It's called Clonezilla. And this utility will clone a hard drive or solid state drive from one device to another. So it only works if your source drive is equal or smaller than the destination. So in other words, the destination, the new drive, the new SSD, has to be equal in size or greater in size than the drive that you're trying to copy from. So our old drive in this case is a terabyte hard drive and it's going onto a terabyte SSD, so it'll work. If we were going from an old 500 gigabyte hard drive to a 1 terabyte SSD, that would work also. But if we're trying to downsize and go from a 1 terabyte hard drive to a 500 gigabyte SSD, then this process would not work. We'll go ahead and just hit enter for English. And we'll just hit enter here on Don't Touch Key Map. And then we'll hit enter again for Start Clonezilla. And we'll arrow down and go to Device, Device. And we'll just stay in Beginner. And we'll want to do a disk to local disk. Okay, so there must be, two hard drives. So we'll plug in our other hard drive. And just make sure, I think this is a USB 3 port. Yeah, so you want to make sure to use USB 3 because it's going to be very slow if you try to do it with USB 2. It will still work, but it will take a very long time. So we'll hit enter. Hit enter again. And we'll just do start over because I forgot to plug that drive in. So we'll just do the same thing, start, device, device, beginner, disk to local disk. And now it's found 2 disks, so that's good. And then it's going to ask us which is the source disk. So we have our 2 disks here, the Samsung SSD and our HGST hard drive. So the source is going to be the HGST hard drive because that's the drive that has the data on it. So we'll hit enter, and then choose local disk as target. All data on the entire disk will be lost and replaced. That's going to be our SSD, which is the only option remaining, so we'll just hit enter. And we'll just skip checking and repairing. And then we'll just hit enter here, so it'll give us the selection whenever it's finished copying. Okay, we'll hit enter again. Are you sure you want to continue? Just review. So all existing data in this partition will be overwritten. And that's Samsung SSD, so that's correct. So we'll just type in Y and then hit enter. And then it just is confirming another time. I'll just hit Y again and hit enter. And now it's starting. So it's completely automated from this point. You don't have to touch it. It'll just do its thing, and it'll let you know when it's finished. So depending on how much data is on there, that could take a while. If the drive is not very full, then it won't take that long. So we'll go ahead and just let this run, and I'll just come back when it's finished. Okay, so we're done copying everything. So what I'm going to do now is just go up to power off and hit enter. And then once that's shut off, I'll unplug our hard drive. And we'll change our startup options again. Okay, so we'll just hit power and F10 to get back into our BIOS. And we'll go back over to boot options, and we'll turn secure boot on. I'll go ahead and we'll zoom out a little bit so you can see the rest of what's going on. So we've got secure boot re-enabled. I'm going to go ahead and take this Clonezilla CD out of here so it doesn't try to boot from that again. And then we'll go ahead and get out of this and go to exit saving changes, yes, and hopefully it will boot into Windows. So we'll just have to wait and see. Well, that's a good sign. Okay, great. So it looks like we're successful. We have a working copy of Windows. So I'm just going to go ahead and we'll get this logged in. I'm going to make sure that there's no private customer information on there, but we'll pull up Device Manager and make sure that everything's detected. Okay, yep, everything does look like it's showing up. We have our Samsung 860 EVO 1TB over here, and we're showing the 8 GB of memory over there. So I'll just go ahead and we can zoom in a little bit. But there it is, Samsung 860 EVO 1TB. Our installed RAM 8 GB. So everything looks like it's working. We're up and running. We've got our old hard drive sitting here off to the side. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the box that the solid state drive came in and just give it back to the customer. I usually like to do that and just instruct them to hold on to it, put it in a safe place, and it's nice to have it for a backup. So anyway, that I think is going to do it. So thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Have a great day.